Hello, and welcome to Musings from the Mystics. I'm Marnie.
And I'm Natalie. We are your guides on this crazy and sometimes tumultuous journey we call the human experience.
Each episode will share our musings about the current energetic climate,
how we're navigating these times,
and tips to help you get the most out of your journey.
So join us to be awakened, empowered,
and expand into conscious action. So Natalie and I have been talking a lot about the podcast and where we want to go with it. And I feel like if we need a mission, like some really clear focus that is beneficial to the audience. So we came up with this great idea. As you know, authenticity, authentic self is the buzzword. Like everyone's talking about it because, well, it's the year of that, right?
It is, absolutely. And it's the buzzword. Like everything you see online, if you follow anybody that does anything like what we do, it's the key word. It's out there. It's everywhere. But what do we do with it?
Right. So it's lovely, but unless you know how to do it, it's a platitude. Oh, I'm going to be my authentic self. Yeah, how? So we have put together a series called Quest for the True You, Missions for Conscious Authenticity. And each week we are going to break it down. Here is one aspect, here's what to do and why, and how you can consciously shift your actions and behaviors to be your most authentic self.
Absolutely. And we're going to start off right here with defining it. So Merriam-Webster has defined it as not false or imitation, real, actual, true to one's own personality, spirit, or character. Living your life according to your own values.
And psychology says authenticity identifies a person living life in accordance with their true self and personal values rather than according, and this is really important, to the external demands of society, such as societal conventions, or what we like to say conditioning, kinship, and duty. Ooh, that's such a heavy word.
Yeah, let's cringe now.
How you're supposed to behave, right? You know, depending on your generation, really depends on how affected you are by that word duty or expectations of society. So since most of our listeners are around our age, you're all going to get it, right? You get where we're coming from.
Absolutely. So let's talk about why and what it means to us.
Yeah.
So, Marnie, what does it mean to you?
So I found something else, which I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is like perfectly said what I wanted to say. One, it's self-awareness, right? It's know thyself. And self-awareness isn't, okay, I'm here in this room. It's, I'm here in this room and this is what I think and why I think it and what I want to do and where I want to go and how I'm going to do it, right? It's more than just being in a room. It is really understanding your motivations, your actions, the underlying stuff. It's also an internalized moral perspective. So not just having a set of values, but intentionally, consciously living those values. Not, oh, I believe this, but I go behave some other way, which a lot of people do.
Yes, lots and lots of people.
A balanced processing of information. And so what that means is like being able to really look at things objectively in this balanced way, rather than coming from a wounded trauma or pre-programmed conditioned behavior, but how do I really feel about this and how do I want to respond? So really being objective. I look at this as being objective.
I would agree with that.
And transparency is the last aspect. And I was like, yeah. And I think this is probably the hardest thing for people to really grasp when it comes to authenticity. And that is transparency, because it means You're not one person for one person and a different person for another person, but actually being truly who you are, regardless of who you're standing in front of, what your situation is, what the environment is. And it's hard. It's really hard for people to really step into that role because we've conditioned a bit. This is how you behave in this situation, and this is how you behave in that situation. And I say, you need to be authentic regardless of the situation.
Yes, and we may throw this in here a little bit later in this episode, but there's this word that Marnie and I love so much that is called respect.
Oh.
That
I don't love that word.
no, but that's part of the conditioning. Like it's we were taught respect for this situation or because this person is in this situation. So
right. Yeah. We'll dive into that more another time or maybe later because that's a deep subject.
Yes.
So what is authenticity for you? What does it look like for you?
So it's the same thing. I like to say speaking your truth, but objectively speaking your truth. There is still a kind way to go about it. So I think some people get the wrong idea that we're saying like go out and just yell your truth from the rooftop and say, oh, this is me, this is who I am. And yes, you can do that. You can absolutely do that because you always have free will to do anything you want. But it's realizing that if I'm being true to myself, I can say what I want and be kind, and it's strength, and it's problem solving, and when it feels good to you, you're not gonna offend somebody. Well, you might a little bit, but
Depends on what their definition of respect is.
Well, this is true. This is why I said we might go there. But they can tell. Even another person can say, "Oh, she really believes this." If it's me saying something that's coming from my authentic self. Oh, this is her. Like, there's no questioning. There's no like. Is she just putting on a show for us today?
Right.
No, this is, it radiates from your body, from your field when you're being authentic.
Yeah. I'll give you a great example that, and it sort of goes around that respect, kindness, it tiptoes around in that realm a little bit. So I do not celebrate Christmas because I am not Christian. And I also don't believe in celebrating a holiday on an arbitrary day. Now, that's my personal opinion. And if you love it, great. Go for it.
And I love it. So don't worry. She's still my friend.
But, people, especially in the South, so you don't find this in, like I grew up in California. This is not a thing. But in the South, everybody wishes you a Merry Christmas versus Happy Holidays or whatever. And I do not celebrate the holiday because everybody else does. That would be inauthentic for me to go around saying Merry Christmas and celebrating that holiday when it's not something that I believe in. So regardless of the external pressures, and I mean, there are an enormous amount of external pressures around Christmas because everybody does it. Now I decorate. I celebrate the season. I actually celebrate the solstice because that aligns with my personal belief system. And, but there's a lot of external pressure to do it anyway. My children grew up celebrating winter solstice and not Christmas. And it worked out for our family, but there's so much pressure. But that would have been inauthentic for me to do it because everybody else does it. Because there's this conditioning and this convention that is accepted by everyone because they do it. So for me, I authentically say I don't celebrate when people are like, oh, what are you doing for the holidays? And I said, well, I celebrate the winter solstice and my family's doing XYZ. And people are like, oh, like they're literally shocked.
Right. They don't know what to say to you.
Right. They're shocked that I'm like, I don't celebrate Christmas, that I speak that truth.
Absolutely.
And that I do what feels right and good for me. And people are really surprised by that. But for me to just shine it on and be kind or respectful, I'm air quoting, by the way, respectful of other people's beliefs and saying, oh, well, I'm just doing this and not sharing what I'm actually doing would be inauthentic. And I'm not willing to do that. So that is the conscious action piece that we are bringing to the table here.
And it is. And again, Marnie's not pushing it.
No.
Like I just said, I love Christmas. You heard those words come out of my mouth, and I grew up with it. I have lots of decorations. It's a thing for me. And she's not pushing it on me to say like, oh, you can't do that anymore. Oh, you have to celebrate the solstice. Like there's that piece of it too. So when you're being your authentic self, you're saying, I'm okay to be me and you're okay to be you.
Absolutely.
And that's where the objectivity comes in, saying, I don't care if you like Christmas or not. It's just not my thing. And leave it at that versus like, all right, me trying to get Marnie to come to Christmas dinner at my house.
Which I would. As long as we're not celebrating.
Right, exactly. But it's the same thing. And as long as she's not saying, oh, you have to stop everything you're doing and do solstice and celebrate solstice, which I would do anyway. But, it's those kinds of things that we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So that kind of tiptoes us into the why. Why do you want to be authentic? Because for me, I want to be seen for who I am. And you either like me or you don't like me. But if you like me or don't like me because I do or don't celebrate Christmas, are you really being authentic? Or are you just subjected to societal conventions,
right,
and following along? And I think being authentic opens up this whole new way of really relating to each other in relationship. And what does that mean? Like, my authenticity doesn't affect your authenticity.
No, and and the other why is, as we were getting into the why, is if you're not being authentic to yourself, to your true self, whatever that means for you, and we're going to tell you how to try and find some of those ways, you're going to have an internal struggle too. It's kind of like all right, I was invited to this party, solstice party at Marnie's house. I'm invited and I don't know anything about the solstice. I don't like the solstice. I don't really want to go, but my whole family's going and they're like mad at me if I'm not going, so I'm going to go. But I didn't want to go and I don't want to go. So I'm doing what everybody else wants me to do instead of doing what I want to do. So you might go, you might have an okay time, but more likely you're going to walk through the door and say, why did I do this to myself? Why did I come here? And it's those struggles that kind of guide you and tell you like, no, this wasn't the right thing for you. You know it.
Yeah.
Deep down, it's just almost being brave enough to let it shine.
Yeah. So when we do those things that are inauthentic, we agree to go along. What happens is it creates a misalignment and a disharmony within us, not only like between head and heart, but also energetically. It really affects us in a deep and profound way. And you keep doing it and keep doing it. And you have a lifetime of doing it. And you wonder why life isn't going the way you want, why you're not happy, why you're struggling in these areas of your life. It's because you're not living authentically. So it's not like, yes, it's a buzzword, but it's not a fad. It is a necessity. That is the energy and the direction that we are moving in as we ascend.
It is, and it's a reason why it's coming out now.
Yeah.
Like it's time for all of us, everyone out there, to figure this out, kind of thing. And it's okay. It's not going to happen overnight. It's it's funny. I have one of these things that I have, and I tell my one client, and if she's listening, she's going to laugh. These things are simple, but they are not easy.
Yes.
And simple and easy are not the same things.
Correct.
They're not even remotely close. So there's a lot of things that I say and I'm like, oh yeah, it's simple. And they kind of look at me and I'm like, I didn't say easy.
Right.
There's a difference.
Yeah.
So the words are simple.
Yeah.
Like, speak your truth, be yourself, do what feels good. But all of that conditioning, family, cultural, country, government,
religion,
you name it.
Depending on the area you grow up in.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's all on top of your shoulders as well. And you're like, oh, well, none of that feels good. What do I do? I'm going to go be a hermit. I'm going to go live in a mountain, on a cabin in the mountain all by myself. And
yeah. I often say, on an island alone.
Or in a castle, right?
Yes,
Right?
yeah.
In a castle all alone. I think there's a song about that somewhere. But anyway, like, we're naturally want to be with people. Most of us, and you're human. You're going to have to interact with people.
Right.
So we want to figure out the best way to do it that makes us feel good, and that we are being authentic. I'm doing air quotes too. Authentic to ourselves. So that's why we're doing this, and that's why we want to get into this.
For sure. And you, just to piggyback off on your simple, not easy statement, is I often tell my clients, humans want to make things really, really complicated, right? The mind wants it to be 50 steps and it's complicated. It's actually not. It's always simple. What the hard part is that it takes conscious action. And this is something else that I say, being awake is one thing, right? Increasing your awareness is another aspect of that journey. But really the final frontier is conscious action, right? It's one thing to listen to podcasts and read books, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm absorbing this information. Are you doing anything about it? Because if you're not doing anything about it, just filling your brain with this stuff is only getting you to a very short bar, right? It's not going to take you over the finish line. So really the reason for the series too is to give you conscious actions. What do you do? How do you do it? Here's some steps. And then move forward, right? And initially, yeah, it feels like homework. Yeah, it feels hard. Of course, that's all about mindset, but it feels like work until it becomes the new habit. Because what you're doing now is just a habit. It is work, and it is actually really hard on our systems to lie and pretend to be something we're not. We're just used to that pain.
Correct. And your body stored it and said, oh, this is the norm. Okay, we're just going to go with this because it's what it knows. Mm-hmm. You can retrain your body. You can retrain everything. Again, like Marnie just said, habit. And we're going to find ways to break some of those habits.
breaking them. Get the sledgehammer out. Yeah. So a point that I want to mention here, and you may be moving around your life thinking, oh, I'm really authentic. I'm really true to myself. The thing to remember is 95, do you hear me, % of our actions come from the subconscious. And the subconscious is where our traumas are stored, mm-hmm. where our memories are stored, mm-hmm. where our conditioning and our programming is stored. That means 95% of how we interact with the world comes from conditioning.
Yeah.
And not from conscious action. So that's another reason why it feels hard, because we're just basically coasting through life on the programming that we've received. And to change that requires a lot of work, and there's only 5% of the brain doing that work. Right? So that feels like, now I believe that we can change that. I think that is a typical person in a typical situation, right? An average, which that's a whole nother conversation.
Mind-boggling.
Right?
Yes.
Even if you're more conscious, how much more? You're 80% is only conditioning, right? So there's this place we have to understand, and this is where awareness and awake come in. Where is this coming from? Where is this behavior that I'm bringing that doesn't feel good? Where's it coming from? And bringing it to the forefront so that then you can make authentic choices to make conscious choices to be authentic.
Yes. And the one thing that's coming up for me now as we're talking, which I feel like I need to say this. Again, most of our listeners will probably get this, but there's the flip side to this, with authenticity being the buzzword of people are using it to be extra mean. Yeah. Like that's true. If there's a conflict and let's say, I don't know, two people have some sort of conflict, and like, you're shaming somebody, but you're saying, I'm being my authentic self while you're shaming this person. That's not really being authentic. No. Because again, I threw the word kindness mm-hmm. in there. Like there's definitely, we'll go back to where we just said, I'm free to be me, you're free to be you, and leave it at that. And there's no judgment. I think that's where I was going with that. The judgment
piece. Mm-hmm.
Being authentic, you are not judging anyone. And I think a lot of people misconstrue that. And that's why I want to make a point about this.
And I appreciate
think
that.
It's a big deal.
Because I have experienced that. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
There you go.
Authenticity is about you.
Yes.
You owning you. And not about, well, I'm this way because you were that way. That's not authenticity or being authentic. It's really about me, my motivations, where I am, how I'm showing up, and it's not about someone else. Now, we have been raised in a culture that is really quick to blame, really quick to point the finger. It's always someone else's fault that we feel the way we feel. And that simply isn't true. But shifting that wheel, like it feels like roll a giant boulder uphill, right? Pushing a giant boulder uphill, trying to shift that energy of external validation, external blame to everything being internal. That does feel like work.
It does. And it's scary for a lot of people because we're saying, and it's out there everywhere too, you're responsible for yourself. Mm-hmm. You're responsible for everything that happens to you. And we as humans don't like to hear that. We don't like
it's also
the way
not the way the brain works.
Feels. Right, exactly. There's a whole bunch of things that, but again, as we're starting this and we're getting into this, I just want to make sure that everybody out there understands there is no judgment in being authentic.
Correct. Yeah. Good. Great point.
Yeah. And so there's also steps. I mean, again, simple, not easy, but we're going to give you some tools and tell you how to move through this. But keep in mind, it's going to feel like work. It's going to feel like homework. It's going to feel like you're in a classroom.
Well, we are. Hello, human experience, giant classroom. And it really depends. Your attitude can make all the difference. It's work for us too. But how we look at it is, I want to grow. I want to be more me. I want to experience wholeness. And what that means is I have to do these steps and I'm willing to do that. Right. Then it's not like, it's not I'm waiting for the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, which always feels like drudgery. Right. It's like, I recognize these are the steps to this experience. And so attitude really makes a difference in this particular quest.
It does.
Attitude matters.
Well, and I know we just got off of judgments, but we were saying judgments for other people.
Ooh, judgments for self.
For self. Yeah, that's like a huge one too. Like, so if you're just stepping into this and you're newly awakened or awakening and you're like, oh, this sounds like fun, let's click this button, and down a rabbit hole you go, as Marnie and I have gone through like a million in the past month or so. But be easy on yourself. You deserve grace too. And yes, we all are humans. We are all here having the human experience. And if you're on this road and you're going to do our quest, which sounds like so much fun, and do all of these missions, remember, be easy on yourself. Give yourself grace. Talk to yourself like you're your own best friend, because in reality, you're the only one you've got. Yeah. So
you're the only one who's going to be with you from the moment you're born to the moment you die.
Right, exactly. So give yourself some grace and say, I'm stepping into this. I'm going to try this out. I'm going to do these things. But, if you stumble, okay.
Yeah.
Big deal. Let's start over again. Let's do it again. I'm going to do better today. Or I did really great. Look how far I've come. Like, it's those little things that you can just start being nice. Be your cheerleader.
Yeah. Well, and this just came in. You could think of it just like a D&D game, right? When you get killed, you don't throw the game out. You do it again, right? You go back and you play and you play and you play until you keep advancing the levels. Hello, that is the human experience. Yes. We keep restarting until you level up, and you just keep playing, right? It's the same thing. So, and I am not a gamer at all, but I do know how they work. So hopefully some of you are gamers and this will make sense, or you have, people in your life who are gamers and it makes sense. So it's the same thing. You don't like throw the Game Boy or the Xbox. I don't know what's popular. I'm so out of touch. You don't throw the gaming system out the window and go, fuck it, I'm never playing again. You don't get mad. Well, maybe you do get mad, but you don't throw it. You say, I paid a lot of money for this and it's valuable to me, and so I'm going to take care of it. You treat yourself the same way.
Right.
I'm valuable and I'm going to take care of it, and I can get frustrated and I can start again.
And you can. And again, like, okay, but look, I started.
Yeah.
If you're starting, okay, look, I took the leap. I actually started something. And then if you're a little more into this, and you can say, but look how far I've come. Look at the progress I've made. And even if it was like when I do EFT with my clients and tapping, we do a scale 0 to 10. 10's like off the charts. I'm totally emotionally triggered. Getting a client from a 10 to an 8 is a huge deal. Like, that's 20%, and people don't look at it that way. They're like, oh, I only went from a 10 to an 8, and we're like, so happy that you made it from a 10 to an 8. Like, you were off the charts, and now you can at least breathe. Mm-hmm. So same kind of things with yourself. I mean, even right where you are, like, I'm starting this knowing nothing.
Right.
And, oh, now I know a little bit more today. Okay, I did a good job today. I learned something new.
Right.
I have a new progress.
I love that.
Process.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
I love that. Cool. So, we talked about the why.
We did talk about the why.
So I love this. You have, how can I start to be authentic?
So what's our first tip to start?
Yeah, what is it?
With being easy with yourself. I think that really is what we just said, and we were talking about getting into this process, but I think the first thing is to be easy with yourself. And again, those social conditionings, start with something simple. And if it's like coffee out and you're like, oh, I really don't want to go out today, don't think of a million excuses, because we all know how that works and what you're going to bring in if you think of a ton of excuses. So just say, no, thank you, maybe another day. And maybe that's your first step to doing something that feels good to you. You're not saying, no, I never want to see you again, I don't like you, which is what we were conditioned to think by saying, no, I don't want to go to your coffee date or your party. It's the small steps that, I want to go play in my garden today, or I want to go ride my bike or read a book or do anything that you want to do.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so I think that's a good, like, and it doesn't have to be a no either. I'm not saying a no, but if it's something you don't want to do, maybe find something you do want to do.
Yeah, I love that. My first tip would be objectivity. To really, so we get really mired down in, the brain goes to a million things very quickly when something happens. It comes up with excuses, or it comes up with defense mechanisms. The brain is quick, right? So to be able to hit a giant pause button, imagine a big red button and it says pause on it, and that you can, in the moment of a situation, pause and pan out from the situation. And this doesn't have to take a long time. It can be literally seconds, because our brain processes very fast. Pause and be objective. Wait a minute. How am I feeling about this? Do I actually want to do this? Do I not want to do this? Why? What feels good to me? And then proceed with whatever the situation is. This pause applies to anything. And being objective. Like, if a story is started, right, that script starts running very quickly. You hear the recording, the story begins for whatever reason. I have to do this because I was told I have to do this. Or I can't do that because I was told that was not bad. That was bad, right? Whatever the script is that's running, pause. How do I actually feel about this?
Yes.
And moving from that place.
Yes. And not only how do I feel about this, maybe a little bit of why do I feel this way? And maybe you can see, like, oh, it's because this is what my mother told me.
Right.
Like, this is how I'm supposed to act.
Right.
Well,
which is called conditioning and programming, right?
Right.
The way my mother and I'm in my 50s, the way my mother, my grandmother were raised, and their ideals, not at all current. Right?
Yes.
The you behave this way, you do this, not at all current in our thinkings and values of today. So if we're running on conditioning that our mothers got from our grandmothers or fathers got from grandfathers, whatever
Right.
the case may be, do you really think that? And does it apply to today?
Right.
Right? We aren't grinding at the same job for 30 years.
Right.
We aren't working for others anymore, right? Everything has changed. Our values and what's important to us, which is much more focused on self-fulfillment and joy and alignment and happiness, are not the same. So we can't use those conditionings to make decisions today. They don't align.
No, and the other thing that I want to say about that too, which is just coming into my head, is you have a lot of other people too that say, I want you to do this for me. And they're looking for external validation, but they're trying to make you feel bad in the process. Like, why don't you want to go to for coffee with me? Well, like, come on, I really want you to go. Come on, really. And so I'm going to like bug you until you agree to do what I want you to do. That's not being authentic for either one of you, but it's like, oh, well, I just want you to shut up, so I'm going to go with you. And that's not exactly, that's not being true to yourself either. So
Have somebody asked you on a coffee date recently? It seems to be stuck in your
it
mind.
does seem to be stuck, but no, I don't even drink coffee, so I'm not even sure why I keep saying something
Maybe
about
someone
coffee.
out there has had a similar situation. I've certainly had clients say, well, I was asked to go to dinner or whatever, and I just didn't feel like it. And I'm learning to say no, and I just don't feel like it without having to defend yourself or the other person getting upset at you because you didn't. Yeah.
Right. And this will definitely be another episode, but we're going to get into that one too. No is not a 4-letter word.
Right. I like 4-letter words.
I do too. But even at that, either way, no is not a 4-letter word.
Right.
I mean, regardless. Like
Guilt and this just came in. Guilt and shame are not part of authenticity ever at any
Right.
point. Just
Right.
like judgment isn't, guilt and shame also not being authentic.
no.
So whether you're on the receiving end of that or you're
dishing
dishing
it
it out, not being authentic.
No. And that's a big conditioning. I see that a lot with like spouses or partners. Like, I want to go do this. I really want you to go because you're my partner, but they're not taking into consideration like, yeah, that's still what you want, but that's not what I want. That's not what I like. I don't want to do those things. So it's a little bit of self-discovery in there too.
Definitely.
Of like, do I really like this thing, or I've just done it for so long and somebody told me I should like it, that's why I'm doing whatever it may be.
So many juicy questions to think about.
There are. We could talk for hours upon hours, which is why we're doing this quest, and we're going to do different missions every week going forward.
Yes, every week, every Wednesday, there will be a new mission. And one of the things that we'll be doing occasionally too is giving you some like free worksheets. There'll be actually a download for this one called Fill in the Blank. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that at the moment. There will be instructions on the download. It will be free. But we're going to be giving you some tools because some people really like that. Some people don't. They just want to listen and never think about it again. And if that's your path, more power to you. But those of you who really want to dive in and want to make the most of it, and really explore and go on this adventure with us, there will be lots of fun things to interact with and to take it deeper personally for yourself.
Yes, and to help you integrate with it. So it's not just like a show and tell kind of thing. We're gonna actually give you some of these things that will say, all right, well, you've told me what authenticity is. I kind of have the gist. How do I do it? And why do I want to keep doing it? What's it going to mean for me kind of thing. So we'll give you some integration tools going
Love that.
forward as well.
Integration is such an important part of life, and there's really no training on that, right?
No.
Nobody teaches you how to integrate information or how to integrate energy work or how to integrate awareness, right? We're just like, okay, I have this awareness, and then we move along life, which is oftentimes why we end up going back, what we call going backwards, or we feel like, why am I repeating this lesson again? Probably because you never integrated the information. And what that means is, I have this awareness, I'm bringing it into my consciousness, and I'm going to look through new eyes. I'm going to move through a new perspective. I'm going to do things from a new awareness, right? That is what integration actually is.
It is. And if it's a lesson that you truly wanted to learn from, the universe, we love the universe so much.
It just keeps on gifting it to you.
It does. It is going to bring it back around time and time again until you learn your lesson or you face it, or whatever you need to get out of it is gotten from it. It's going to keep coming back.
So you might as well learn to integrate. The moral of this story is you might as well learn to integrate and move through life with a new perspective and from a different place of awareness, like a higher awareness and consciousness. It matters.
It does matter. And the other thing, too, is you're not alone. There is a whole group of people waking up, awakening, getting on this train, bandwagon, whatever you want to call it. But there are tools out there. There are resources. There are people that can help you. There are things that you can do. There's help. Marnie takes clients. I take client. Like, there's coaching programs. You're not alone, I guess, is the most important thing to say. And either whether it's with us or you download some YouTube videos, or there is a whole lot more information right now than even when we got started. And I haven't been doing this all that long. Marnie's been doing it for much longer than I have, but
about 30 years.
Right.
Oh, that's terrible.
And I'm going to say, in the past, I've been probably 8 to 10, even the information that's available now is even more in depth
Absolutely.
and more helpful and more available to everyone.
Yeah, for sure. Have we covered everything we wanted to cover?
I think we have.
Okay.
It was a lot.
It does feel like a lot, but it's an overview.
It is an overview.
It's an overview. We're going to take all of these pieces and components and parts and aspects that we've talked about and break it down into bite-sized little
manageable.
niblet.
Yeah, manageable.
Amuse-bouche sizes of data and information so that you can integrate it and begin to use it. And of course, since it's a podcast, you can always come back and replay it and listen. You're not on a weekly timeline. You can do this at whatever pace you want. Because the fact of the matter is, we are all on this quest, and we're all in different phases of that quest.
Correct.
Some of us are level 1 and some of us are level 10 and some of us are 20, and right, we're all in different levels on this quest. But we are all on this quest. If we are humans living on the planet at this time, we are all being asked to become our most authentic selves. The energies that are coming into the planet are no joke. They are no joke. And they are bringing up all the shit that doesn't work and saying, hey, this isn't really you. Why do you keep doing this? Because it's not really you. You're going to have to let that go because it's not really you.
Right. And again, playing over and over again until you actually get the message integrated. And, Marnie just said we're all at different phases, which is absolutely true. And there is no right or wrong. Right. And you can't get it wrong.
And there's no better place to be.
Correct.
Because your soul came in to learn this life that you're on, right? If you wanted to have a lower or a higher, let's say lower or higher, not speaking hierarchies, but a lower vibration experience or a higher vibration experience, that's what it would have done. So you're exactly where you need to be. Exactly.
Yes.
There's nothing you need to do differently other than really embrace your authentic self.
Right.
That's what we came here to do.
Absolutely. And you're here for a reason. You're listening for a reason. So this was meant for you.
There you go. So with that, thank you for listening. We appreciate it. We will be back next Wednesday with another quest for the true you.
Yes, another mission on our quest.
Another mission on our quest. Until next time.
Goodbye.
Bye.